Yo, okay, back with the whiteboard of dreams. Today, clean eating versus flexible dieting. Brought the whiteboard of dreams outside, give it a bit of fresh air, switch things up a little bit. So, clean eating is something that's been around for a long, long time. It tends to suggest, or tends to give, or assign people rigid calorie and macronutrient goals. And most importantly, it separates foods into good foods or clean foods and bad foods. So this is where the majority of the problem lies, because basically there's no such thing as good foods and bad foods. Yes, there are foods with more calories. Yes, there are foods with less nutrients. But trying to split, or attempting to split foods into good foods, a good group and a bad group, basically suggests there's an implied morality to eating said food. So attaching some sort of morality to a food is always going to lead to negative emotions if you eat something from the bad group. So eating something from the bad group is going to lead to like guilt, shame, all that sort of stuff, which in turn inevitably leads to binging on foods, sometimes in extreme cases eating disorders, so something around these days called orthorexia, which is basically an extreme kind of version of this, so attempting to eat extremely clean, and then once you inevitably fall off the rails, then going into some sort of binging spiral. And yeah, kind of cheat days are normally associated with clean eating, which again is just another binge. So it's essentially not the most wholesome way of eating. So compare this with flexible dieting, which in my opinion flexible dieting makes long-term fat loss accessible to the masses. Once you learn a little bit and get to know a bit about calories and macros, it's not actually that difficult. So flexible dieting is exactly that, it's flexible. So you tend to get assigned general calorie, macro and macronutrient guidelines, which all that means is rather than attempting to stick to calorie macronutrient goals 100% on one day, if you do go slightly off track, you can recover the next day or the day after, whatever, the week after. It's not the end of the world if you go off track. If it's not the end of the world when you go off track, there's going to be less negative emotions attached to said diet. So one of the negative things about flexible dieting, or one of the downsides, is that sometimes the nutrients and micronutrients in foods they're ignored basically. So too much focus on macros and calories, not enough on the quality of food, which is a potential downside. So yeah, basically flexible dieting is more realistic for most. It gives you a structure to work with, but that structure will be flexible and you'll be able to apply it to yourself, your likes, your dislikes, your lifestyle, whereas clean eating tends to be rigid, doesn't really work for most people, and kind of get in this cycle of under eating, overeating. So yeah, I hope that clears that up.